Hi all. My name is Franziska and I am a member of the Meet and Code team. I'd like to wish you all a warm welcome from our partners, Haus des Stiftens, TechSoup Europe and Amazon. Welcome to our first Meet and Code webinar this year. If you are new, let's tell you a bit more about Meet and Code. Meet and Code was launched in 2017 to assist nonprofit organizations in providing digital skills education to young people across Europe. And now, 8 years on, Meet and Code has already reached more than 3,000 youth across 35 European countries, giving them the digital literacy and coding skills to thrive in tomorrow's competitive digital economy. And the initiative awards microgrants of 500 euros to local nonprofits to facilitate the digital skills workshops they deliver. Why have we launched the Meet and Code webinars? The webinar series is an extension of the Meet and Code commitment to help nonprofits become more innovative and creative in the work that they do. And they are designed to inspire all of you with learnings, useful resources, and insights in the exciting world of IT and coding. And this year's Meet and Code webinar series will mainly focus on the Amazon Future Engineer resources, which are free resources on computer science education and career exploration that can be used for Meet and Code workshops in the classroom or for other educational activities. What exactly is Amazon Future Engineer? As you might already know, Amazon is major donor partner for Meet and Code 2024 and enables the initiative within the framework of Amazon Future Engineer. Amazon Future Engineer is a childhood to career program to bring computer science literacy and careers of the future to young people with a focus on students historically underrepresented in technology. And the program provides resources for career exploration, classroom resources for teaching computer science, teacher training, live workshops, and more. And we are thrilled to dive deeper into some of those free multilingual resources during this webinar series. And we will start with Coding for Climate Action today, which is available in English and German. So now let's introduce our dynamic expert speaker. We are very delighted to have Peter, CEO at Digital, with us today to tell us more about coding for climate action. And also warm welcome to Sarah, who has been delivering coding for climate action in schools and will share some insights. Coding for Climate Action Computing offers resources for primary and secondary students in a context of sustainability and environmental events, where students are encouraged to code early warning systems to mitigate the effects of natural hazards. And with this topic and input, you will be able to teach students how to use computer science to protect against the consequences of climate change. And you will be equipped with fresh ideas for engaging Meet and Code events, school lessons, or other educational activities. So let's dive right into today's topic and learn more about coding for climate action. If you have any questions, please write them in the chat. We will also have a Q&A session at the end of the webinar. Thank you very much. And Peter, over to you.
Thanks, Franzi. Thanks so much. Hello, everyone. And yeah, welcome to the session. Really delighted you could be with us today. I know you're all really, really busy people, so I really appreciate your time, and I really hope you come away with something useful to try out in your communities or in your schools. So we're going to move straight on. I just want to tell you a little bit about Digital, the charity. So we're a not-for-profit in the UK. We're known for our work engaging girls in computer science, and a lot of the resources we're going to show you today have come from that understanding of how to engage girls with coding and computer science. And our charity actually has a steering group of 3 young women who work in technology, which is really good for us to understand what's needed, what young people are looking for, and how we can prepare them for the future. And all of our resources and training is all delivered by practicing teachers, so we're still teaching in the classroom. And that's something we try to sort of insist at the charity, that we're able to test things out, work with other teachers as well. So just a little bit about why climate is so important. I probably don't need to tell you this, you probably know this already, but it's really important. Young people are both concerned and both excited about sorting the climate crisis that we're in. We want young people to be resilient. We want them to understand how to not only kind of mitigate these problems, but how to be discerning users of technology to be able to kind of work with the problems that are caused by climate action. Physical computing is a great way of young people understanding this. Computing can sometimes be seen as a little bit of a sort of a stationary, sedentary subject area. What's really great with these resources is the children code for a little bit and then they go outside and test them. So they might try them in the corridor, they might try it in the school hall, they might try it in their local playground, wherever it might be. So and it's really about them understanding early warning systems. So there is a sensor to detect something, could be like an earthquake, could be a wildfire, something like that. And then there's another microbit that it transmits to display a warning. And the great thing about the kind of climate action resources is that children get to work in pairs and in small groups. So they get to code a solution together and transmit data together. On the right hand side are some photos of some young people actually getting involved with coding for climate action. So you can see that they're working. This is our primary resource. And just to share with you, we have a primary resource and a secondary resource. The primary resource actually has 7 lessons in it. The secondary resource has 6 lessons or 6 hours. We also have an hour of code activity with primary and secondary. So if you just want to kind of dip your toe in the water, just try it. You can use the hour of code resources. If you want to go for a full 6-week learning, then you've got those resources as well. So try to make that as adaptable as possible. As I said before, it helps them understand natural hazards, and they get to work collaboratively in small groups, as you can see right in front of you. That's the kind of the main bit behind the resource, and it uses the microbit as part of that. Primary is very much about using the block-based programming in the microbit MakeCode environment. The secondary resource actually uses it as a transition from block-based coding through to Python coding, MicroPython. So its secondary resource is very much about that transition. They have some activities in block, they have to edit them in text-based programming, and then towards the end of the unit of work or the module of work, they actually produce those materials from scratch, as it were. As an overview, they get to look at the problems of what natural hazards can cause, whether that's problems with life, with nature, the wider environment. They look at existing solutions out there already, so real case studies of early warning systems used in different countries. And then they go through to looking at using sensors, then using radio transmission, and then building a solution such as, detecting an earthquake. Or, as you can see on the right hand side in the secondary resource, there's a young lady there who is holding a microbit and moving it up and down as if it's on a buoy in the ocean to detect whether there's some high waves and we're going to get some flooding. So it's all about the young people being part of that, so sort of pretending to be that natural hazard, and it's about a warning being sent to another microbit to then display that warning message. All of the resources come with lesson slides. We've used the latest Prim pedagogy for programming inside, so that's predict, run, investigate, modify, make. It's all mapped to computational thinking concepts, which I'll come to in a moment. And we've also recorded each of the lessons in a teacher training mode, so that if you want help with any of the 6 or 7 sessions in the resource, you can just view the recording. So you don't have to go to live training, which we also provide. You can just view the recordings itself. It's also linked to careers. So we look at some areas around people that work in these particular roles of looking at early warning systems. There's an example here of a particular solution that uses AWS Cloud as well, where we have, which is a Grillo system, which uses multiple we can use it as microbits to detect tremors, and then that will, based on 4 of those receiving that message, it will send it to local community. It's all interweaved with different skills. So we look at problem solving, creativity, staying positive, aiming high, leadership and teamwork. That's all built into the resources as well. Just to tell you about some of the programming competencies that are inside this. I'm not going to read these out. It's not going to be helpful to anyone, but you'll get a copy of the slides if you want to look at this in more detail. But basically, you've got all of these programming skills. So they go from selection, they look at iteration as well. We look at control structures, so input and output. We also look at accessibility, so how we could use our early warning system to support people with visual or hearing difficulties. And then, of course, there's the whole algorithmic piece of this as well. So you look at branches, conditions, that type of thing as well. In a secondary resource, exactly the same. We've mapped this out. So they look at different data types. They look at if and elif statements. They use while loops. They use for loops as well. And they use things such as flags or Boolean. So there's a whole load of programming skills linked in, but it's all pedagogically done. So they run a problem, modify a program, and get the confidence to then make their own. That's kind of the theme throughout it. We look at the phenomenon that we're sort of looking at as a whole group, and then we look at the individual problems and bring those together. So this is actually linked to the English curriculum. But what's more important is that you can adapt that to yourself by using these computational thinking statements. So this is taken from session 3 of the secondary resource. So in every lesson plan, which I'll show you in a minute, or activity plan, there's a list of the 5 computational thinking concepts and where those are brought out in that lesson. So you can just map this to your own curriculum in your own country by using those statements. We are recognising schools that are taking part. We've had a pilot go on previously before we've kind of launched more widely. So we've had pilot schools go out, and we've got lead Code for Climate Action schools. So you can be part of that. And for teachers that deliver the programme, or community leaders that deliver the programme, and for young people that take part, they also get a digital badge as well. So we have some sort of accreditation for the work they do. And some key features of it I've kind of put here. Again, I won't read them all out, but it's all about the hook, really. It's about the context of climate change, natural hazards, and mitigating those hazards. It's all about the cross-curricular links between science and the computing curriculum as well. And there's a real focus on prototyping and testing. So throughout the resource, it's all about them creating some code, trying it out, testing it, coming back, editing it, re-prototyping. So there's that kind of design thinking approach that goes through as well. We've deliberately included quite a lot of radio transmission, especially in the secondary resource, because it allows pupils to work together, do some pair programming, test things out at a distance as well. And both the resources include data logging, so that they can actually collect the data that they're looking at and interrogate and analyze that data as well. I'll show you the resources in a minute. I'll show you where to find them, and I'll dive in a little bit more. But here's a little bit of a zoom in, a little bit of a deep dive into some of the resources. So there's a mix of primary and secondary here. So I've just put some pictures in here. You can see we're using block code. In the secondary, we move from block code to MicroPython. We look at data logging and setting a tolerance. So that's actually a way of how high or low a microbit is in the ocean. So the pupils get to decide, or the children get to decide, you know, what's my tolerance line? What could constitute as there's a potential flood coming for a coastal area. We look at things such as humidity, the problem with too much water, the problem with too little water. And then we look at things such as accessibility. So for children who are autistic, for the visually impaired, for the hearing impaired, we get pupils to adjust their solutions to try and support the whole community so that no one is left out. As I said, there's an hour of code resource, which I'll direct you to in a moment. This is really just a packaging of the primary and secondary 6 lesson resource into a single hour. So they get given a partial solution, they edit that solution, they modify it and make it more their own. And it's a good way of, if you're just running an hour session, or you're running a bit of a festival or an activity, or if you just want to kind of get started with it, see how it feels before you move into the more detailed, longer sequence of lessons. And what we've done to try and make this as successful as we can, we like to think, is we've really encouraged contextualization. We've tried to do multiple models. There's an hour of code, there's units of work, there's live training, there's recorded training, there's teacher guides, lesson plans. There's also journals that children can complete, exemplar journals. So you don't have to use all these things. We've just tried to cover as many avenues as possible for the way that you like to deliver these activities with the young people that you work with as well. So what I'm going to do now is just show you a little bit about what the children have said about the resource so far, and then I'm going to sort of move over and show you where to find them and where all the files are. So all the children that have gone through the resource, we've had many children work through these resources now, and you can see here that the results we've got so far. So what's come out of it really clear is it's been able to make the link between computer science engineering and making the world a better place. That's really come out strongly. About whether someone is capable of being a computer scientist or an engineer if they want to. So those two particular questions have come out. We asked children about, like, how did they find the resource? Did they find it really bad? Did they find it not so good? Did they find it okay? Did they find it good, or whatever it was? And that's for the right hand side, not for the left hand side. So for the right hand side, the majority of students have said that they found it good. Got 20% awesome, 30% okay. On the left hand side, the colours are different, so don't get confused with that. But basically asked them two questions, which was they like learning computer science, and it was fun to code with the microbit. So that was the two bits that they really enjoyed with the resources. And I talked about the engagement of girls. So this is a bit of a schematic we use, a bit of a diagram we use. So it's all about inside influences, role models, outside experiences, developing their leadership, giving them new experiences, getting them to be creative. So we try to build the resource on these core values to engage girls with the resource. So a couple of things for you. You already probably know about where Meet and Code is, but the link is there. The resources can be found at amazonfutureengineer.co.uk/coding for climate action. And I'm just going to dive over to there now with you. So I'm just going to stop sharing that. I'm just going to bring up my browser for this, just to show you where you can find the resources and how you can get involved. Here we go. Okay, so when you go to amazonfutureengineer.co.uk/C4CA, it will take you to this page. So key stage 2 materials in England are primary. So that's basically primary. That's year 5 for us. So you're looking at kind of 8 to 9 year olds. You could use it for 8 to 10 year olds into that kind of category. And then key stage 3 is kind of, you could use these materials for 11 to 12 year olds, maybe moving into 13 year olds. Okay, so this is the primary resource here. What I'm actually going to do is just dive into the all resources. They're all on a Google Drive that you can access. So I'm just going to talk you through a couple of these resources. So there's the hour of, I'm going to zoom in a little bit so you can see it a little bit better. There's an hour of code resource here you can access for primary that has the lesson plan, has the resources and some extension challenges. I'm going to dive into one of the lessons. I'm just going to dive into lesson 3 and just share with you what resources are in here. So you have the actual slides themselves with notes in the speaker view as well, through some of the resources. So this guides you through all the content of building the early warning systems. So this one's particularly focusing on floods and earthquakes. Alongside those resources, there is an activity plan or a lesson plan. So this starts off with some success criteria, a little bit of a snapshot, like in summary, what's the lesson about? What are we going to be exploring? Or the activity if it's not running as lesson. You've got your computational thinking links here. Materials that you need, normally just a microbit and a cable. We've tried not to include too many additions to the microbit to make it more accessible. And then you've got for each individual slide, if you need it, you've got a summary of what you can talk to the students about, any extra links for each of those. And then we've got some rough timings as to how long you might want to spend on those activities. Okay, so every lesson comes with one of those. If I go back in to here, I'm just going to share with you just something else that might be useful. There's also a journal that the young people can fill in, the children can fill in. So for each, you might not want to do this, you might get them to collect their own evidence or screenshot, but if you wanted something more structured, they can actually complete these little activities for each of the lessons. So there's a whole journal they can complete, and that goes for every single lesson. And if helpful, we've also got an exemplar one that we filled in, so that you can kind of see the sort of things that pupils might write, or the sort of things we're sort of aiming at for some of these activities. Okay. I'm just going to dive very briefly into the secondary resources. So I'm just going to go into secondary resource. So in the secondary resource, you've got a journal exactly the same as we had for the primary, so you can use that for that secondary resource as well. There's also the exemplar journal here. So again, you can see the sort of things that the children might complete as part of these activities. There's spaces for them to drop in their screenshots if you want to show you if you're using it for assessment purposes, or if they just want to collect the evidence of what they've done. So that's all in there. I'm going to dive into the hour of code in this particular activity. So in the hour of code, there's a little activity plan, which is a bit of a shortened version. So timings on what you can spend on each of the slides, some notes here that might be useful to you if you want to. And then there are the slides. In this situation, the children build a microbit that they simulate as being on the ocean, and as it goes up and down, it collects the acceleration of the y-axis, and then they determine where a tolerance is. So what do they constitute as being a significant, increase or decrease of height of the microbit? And as a result of that, they will create a warning. So they will send a message from one microbit to another, for example, to create that. So that's kind of a little hour of code. Again, it's all based on the prim pedagogy of run something, modify, and then make your own as well. And then the final thing just to show you is if you felt like you needed some additional training on this, there is a document here, and all you got to do is click on these ones for each lesson. So this is like session 1, session 2. You can click on those, and there's a recording of someone from digital just talking you through the resource, what you go through, any misconceptions, that type of thing. So all recorded training is there as well. What I wanted to do was just to drop in the link. I'll just do that. So I'm just going to drop this link into the chat just in case you wanted that to access the resources. And I think at this time we're just about 30 minutes in. I wanted to just hand over to Sarah, who's been watching lots of different schools work through this activity. So she's been feeding back to us on what's worked well, what hasn't worked so well, and all those resources have been updated. Because it's in the Google Drive, we're constantly updating them. So we always recommend you work from the Google Drive or just download the latest version, because every time we get some feedback, we try and tweak the resources to improve them over time. So Sarah, your classroom's immaculate in the background. I mean, that's amazing. If you do like that. I'm going to hand over to Sarah, who's going to tell you a little bit more about Code of Climate Action.
Okay, so I've been working with different areas within the UK, Staffordshire, Warwickshire, and we have lots of schools that are trialing this for us. And I must say, the feedback is absolutely fantastic. We have some schools that have teachers that have never even seen a microbit, and all of the resources will go through what is a microbit. It gives all the teachers the guidance on how to deliver a lesson, and you've then got the PowerPoints to go with it. So for those that have a teacher that doesn't feel very secure in their own knowledge, this is a fantastic resource that they can use to develop their own CPD as well as the children. Some of the comments that have come back, Key Stage 3 children are really enjoying interpreting the data. So when Pete was talking about the waves going up and down, and they've loved actually interpreting all that data when you put it back into the computer, which is really good, so they can see the links and about the tolerances and how to create that early warning system. Key Stage 2 children, we've had some really good fun with them. I think because it's physical, because a lot of programming you just do it on the screen, and what they found is that we have more children engaged, enjoying this, want to do programming, because it's that physical activity. And for the, I think it was the radio waves, our teacher phoned me and she says, "Oh my goodness, we've had so much fun." The students didn't realise that the microbits could talk to each other over radio waves. And then what they did, they then said, well, how far does it go? So, you know, if we're going to do this early warning system, so they tested it to the end of the classroom. They then went outside to the playground, and because it's a 2-form entry, they've got a second playground, and it was actually still working. And some of them, you know, how's it doing this? This is, you know, it's a really cool thing to do. And why hasn't everybody got an early warning system, you know, within the world, seeing it so easy to do? We had some of the children talking about conductors and insulators. And one of the questions they said, well, okay, when we're measuring water as a conductor, because it's an impurity and it has salt in it, salt then therefore must be a conductor. So we tested it. You know, they're using their computational thinking around some of these activities. And when they tested it, they found out, well, it didn't work. Well, why doesn't it work? So then there was that more, well, we've got to go and do some research. Well, why does it work when it's in water and you know, when it's on its own, it doesn't? So they learned all about more scientific things and realised once you put water into the salt, it will then act as a conductor, and then the early warning system was then triggered. It has been so successful that the majority of the schools that I've worked with have now put this scheme of work, these 6 or 7 lessons, into their computing schemes of work, ready for next year, because they see a real benefit of this, and also that it links to other areas of the curriculum, such as science, it links to geography, and through this, they're also now starting to think, well, actually, we could develop this and I could use it in geography in other areas, or create a house alarm, etc. For one boy in a school, it really made a difference to him because he had poor attendance, but because he enjoyed doing these sorts of activities and learning about coding, he came into school and he went away, he asked his parents for his own microbit, and he carried on at home. So the school were really impressed. So, you know, through those lessons, it's actually raised his attainment in school, as well as learning to program and to code. One of the schools is now doing an after school club through demand because of the pupils. Some of the teachers like the workbooks. They love the fact that they can use some use Google Classroom, some use Microsoft Teams. So all the links, the children can then click on them because the teachers set it up as a classroom, and it makes it really easy for them to find the resources. But I think the majority of this is down to, you know, fantastic resources, ease of access, and, you know, if they're unsure, they either ring up and ask for some advice, or we'll do one-to-one sessions with them, or they use the videos that Pete and Digital have created so they can review them before they do their lessons. And a lot of the teachers go, wow, it's actually improved my own CPD and knowledge and understanding. So I couldn't recommend them enough. So if you do them, go and have a go.
Thanks, Sarah. Thank you for sharing those. And I didn't tell Sarah what to say. I just asked her to talk about it. So thank you, Sarah. I've just put in the chat for everyone as well. You'll note at the end of the lesson plans, we link to some extra activities. So if you're looking for additional things to do around climate action, where you connect things to the microbit, I've put a link in the chat. There's one where you can create a wind turbine, where you can do power down. There's one where you can create your own Llama-Gotchi, so you create your own pet llama that's actually powered by a solar cell, so you can connect it to a microbit, for example. So if you're also looking for additional resources from Amazon Future Engineer, there's some additional one-off activities that might complement that resource.
And I forgot
to mention it earlier.
I forgot to say the kids love the car hoots as well. So there's some car hoots after some of the activities.
Thank you, Peter and Sarah. Thanks so much. I think that was very inspiring and interesting, and we are fortunate to have you two with us for a few minutes longer. So I'd like to open the platform for questions. Please type them into the chat or raise your hand. I think we already have 2 questions. So Ada asked whether you could send some resources from the presentation. I think we can share the presentation after this webinar with the audience. And Olivia asked, or she said that she loves your resources and whether you could possibly add assessment materials.
Yeah, that's a really great question, actually, and that's something that has come back around assessment. So obviously we've mapped it to the computing curriculum in England, so the assessment resources are probably not easily transferable, but what we have done is the journals that you can see in the resources might give you a steer on the sort of level of response we're looking for. But that's definitely something that we're hoping to develop further, because that has come back to us as well. So that's super helpful.
I'm just checking the chat. Okay, I think those are. Is there any practical experience with cooperation in Ukraine?
Sorry, Franz, it cut out for me there. Could you say that again? Just cut out for me.
I just read the question. Is there any practical experience with cooperation in Ukraine?
I'm not that I know there's various versions of coding for climate action. I know there's a version created by an NPO in Germany, isn't there, as well? I think there's another one or two as well. I can't remember. I know there's a US version as well, but I don't know of one in collaboration with an organisation in Ukraine.
Yeah, coding for climate action as a resource from Amazon Future Engineer and cooperation organizations. I think it's not existing in Ukraine so far. It's existing in Germany with another organization called Calliope, and in the US, but not yet in Ukraine. I don't know whether there are any comparable activities, but Amazon Future Engineer, I don't think so.
But feel free to reach out, because if we can help you, if you need to ask any questions about how that can fit into the activities or curriculum or style in Ukraine, we're more than happy to help out. So quite happy to jump on a call and see if we can share any insight as well. That's fine.
any further questions or feedback ideas, we are happy to help.
How are schools using microbits? Are any other schools out there using them, and what resources are you using?
So microbit playground.
Well, if you do anything today, I strongly recommend you go and have a look at these resources because they are fantastic.
Thanks, Sarah. I think, let me check. I think there is another question. What would you suggest as a topic so that it can be implemented in 4 teaching hours in a primary school? I can copy the question into the chat.
Yeah, if you could do that. What you suggest as a topic that can be implemented in 4 hours? Yeah, so I think if you're doing it over 4 hours, because a lot of the primary resources, the first 2 lessons are very much around the science. So looking at the importance of, well, what happens if you have too much water or not enough water. In terms of the coding activities, they come in sort of more in lessons 3 onwards. So if you wanted to compress it, you could just do the kind of more computing focus and remove that context. But probably a good activity to do is where you have one microbit that might simulate something like an earthquake or a wildfire, so detects high levels of light or high temperature, or detects that you shake a microbit, and then just use the radio to transmit to another microbit, and then they can just display a warning and code that. That's probably, in terms of the main coding activity, that's the bit that the children really enjoy, is getting one microbit to talk to another. That's sort of really exciting for them, so I'd probably suggest doing that.
Thank you. So let me quickly check. I think for now, that's all. If you have any questions after our webinar, you can just write an email to us or Peter at Digital, and we are trying to answer all your questions. So yeah, we'd like to thank Peter and Sarah and our partners, and especially you, our Meet and Code audience, for your time and attention this afternoon. And we've enjoyed hosting you and hope you will walk away feeling inspired and motivated. And yeah, we look forward to seeing you at the next Meet and Code webinar. Please have a look on our capacity building page for more information. And remember to check out the Meet and Code website, browse through our inspiration library, and follow us on social media. And thanks a lot for your time, and have a nice afternoon.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much.